Take it away, Danny Sheehan, constitutional attorney, co-founder with Sara Nelson of the Romero Institute.
Great. Thank you very much, Tatanka and Carol. Sara is here with us today, too. She's going to cover the second 15 minutes of addressing the Green New Deal, its present status, what we're doing, what the process is that we're engaged in at this stage of it. I'm going to do the first 15 minutes giving you an update on the kind of a whole bunch of developments that have occurred with regard to the Dakota Access Pipeline and the Keystone Pipeline. And then I'll do the first part, then Sara will do the Green New Deal, and then I will do the final 30 minutes or so discussing the steps that need to be taken between now and the election to try to get the Joe Biden administration likely to be more and more progressive than they had intended to do when the DNC, Democratic National Committee, picked him basically to be the candidate. And what we're going to have to do after he gets elected between then and 2024 to be prepared for the election that's going to be taking place in 2024, because it's likely that he will not run again for a second term. And so these are the things that we need to do together if we are really devoted to trying to bring about not only the Green New Deal on a national and global level, but also more progressive policies in a whole range of areas. So what I want to do first is I want to give you an update on the adventures of the Keystone Pipeline and the Dakota Access Pipeline. Remember the last time that we were together a week ago, the Federal District Court in Washington, D.C. had, after a 4-year battle over the Dakota Access Pipeline, Judge Boasberg had finally relented and acknowledged that not only was the granting of the permit illegal, but because of that, he had to vacate the permit. And therefore, the pipeline had to be shut off, and all the oil had to be drained out of the pipeline by August 5th. While they were then going to be undertaking the mandatory full environmental impact study of the pipeline, which we were quite convinced from the very beginning they would never survive. They could not conduct a full environmental impact study of that pipeline and have it end up being permitted. The whole point of the National Environmental Protection Act is to stop that type of construction from starting even at the beginning until they've met that burden. But as you all know from our numbers of talks about that, Judge Boasberg kept letting them go forward during the whole pendency of the litigation, because he kept thinking that he was going to be able to get away with letting them escape without fully complying with the law. But what's happened now is that from the time that he entered that injunction, ordering them to shut down the pipeline and to drain the pipeline, he did that on July 6th. Just last Thursday, what happened is that the Trump administration and the Energy Transfer Partners Corporation that owns the pipeline, they appealed to the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. And the DC Circuit Court of Appeals entered an order lifting temporarily his stay. And so the pipeline is going to be allowed to continue. The Dakota Access Pipeline has never been shut off yet, and they are not going to shut it off until the 3-judge panel of the DC Circuit Court of Appeals enters a ruling. Now, I want to point out that could be perceived as bad news because we had anticipated that the pipeline was going to be shut down and drained by August 5th. The good news is, however, that 3-judge panel has 2 Democrats and 1 Republican. And both of the women judges who are on that panel are quite liberal Democrats, pro-environment. The likelihood is that they're going to rule on this very quickly. And no matter what the Republican judge says, it's likely that the 2 of the 3 judges are going to vote to sustain the ruling of Judge Boasberg. And they're going to order the pipeline to be shut off in accordance with the same schedule that Boasberg had set, that they will have to have that shut off by the 5th of August, because they have entered a rule that the briefs from all sides have to be into the court by this coming Monday. And they just ruled on it on Thursday, and they've given both parties until a Monday to get their briefs in. And my judgment is that they're going to rule on this before August 5th, and they're going to sustain the initial order of Judge Boasberg, of his July 6th order. Now, the other side, the Trump administration, is obviously going to be then attempting to go directly to the United States Supreme Court to bypass an en banc. But I believe that at least one of the judges of the DC Circuit is going to ask to have a full en banc review, which means that of the 11 active judges there in the district, in the circuit court of the District of Columbia, that one of them is going to ask for an en banc review. And the chief judge, who is a Clinton appointee, is going to grant that, and he's going to poll the judges. And I think that of the 11 active judges, 6 of them will agree to review the decision en banc. And what they're going to do is they're going to do whatever it is they think is necessary to strengthen the ruling of the 2 judges on the 3-judge panel, to prepare it, because they know that it's going to be going to the United States Supreme Court. I do not believe that the en banc, I do not believe that they will put in a stay of Boasberg's order. I think they're going to order the pipeline to be shut down and to be drained by August 5th. Now, that means that the bad guys, the Trump administration and the oil corporation, is going to go immediately to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court is not in session. The Supreme Court has taken a vacation. They're gone, and they're not sitting around waiting for this order. And so it's quite unlikely that the United States Supreme Court is going to either hold an emergency session. The only time they've ever done that was for us in the Pentagon Papers case. They went out and actually called all the judges back from their vacation back in 1971 and ruled in our favor, in favor of the New York Times, to be able to go forward to publish the Pentagon Papers. So it's very unlikely the Supreme Court's going to intervene on this thing. And hopefully there will be no entrance of any order on this. There'll be no entrance of an order staying the injunction. So all of that comes out to be good news with regard to what's going on with the Dakota Access Pipeline. And very importantly, that for the sophisticated audience that we have here, of the 133 of us that are here now, the bottom line is that all of this has held up, is going to be holding up the Dakota Access Pipeline from continuing to function until Joe Biden is elected on November 3rd and comes into office on January 20th of 2021. And he's already vowed publicly that he's going to shut off the Dakota Access Pipeline. So all of this is a question of how long it's going to take us to get that shut off. But I believe that there's a 95% likelihood that we're going to get the Dakota Access Pipeline shut off. And they're going to have to shut it off and conduct an entire environmental impact study. And I believe that it's 90% likely that they're not going to be able to pass that. That's not going to work for them. It's too negatively impactful on the entire environment and too much of a threat to the environment. Now, with regard to the Keystone XL pipeline, the Keystone XL pipeline is presently under an injunction prohibiting them from doing any construction on the pipeline. I've got to go find the detailed order of Judge Morris to find out whether or not it also includes prohibiting them from engaging in any activities that are supportive of the construction of the pipeline. I've read a couple articles that say that is what his order said, so I've got to get out and find it, because we have through the tribal council on the Cheyenne River Sioux Reservation, they have deployed a team of police from the tribe. The tribal police have gone to the site in the far southwesternmost corner of the Cheyenne River Sioux Reservation, and they have got videotapes now of people working there, and they're surveying and they're staking out a road that they have to build to go down into an inaccessible area on the Cheyenne River, where they're going to try to build that pipeline across the river. And the police, David Vance or Stephen Vance, went out there. One of the tribal police confronted them and has learned that who has been deployed now to do the work for the pipeline is the South Dakota Department of Transportation, who have come out now thinking that's going to be how they're going to get around the injunction that's been entered against the pipeline corporation, prohibiting them from engaging in these type of activities. And Kristi Noem, who is an absolutely avid supporter of Trump and an avid supporter of the pipeline, has now obviously tasked the Department of Transportation, guarded by state police, to come out to by where the reservation is and to do the surveying and preparing for the pipeline that I believe they're not supposed to be doing right now. So the battle is on. The dramatic events that are transpiring around these two pipelines continue apace, but all of this is by way of delaying those pipelines until Joe Biden gets elected. Because in addition to saying he's going to shut down the Dakota Access Pipeline, he's also vowed that he's going to shut down the Keystone XL pipeline. So that we're winning. We're winning on all of those fronts. And the Lakota people are standing up. They're pushing back against those pipelines. They've organized. They've invited people in from around the world to help stop the Dakota Access Pipeline. And if it becomes necessary, they will probably invite other people to come in to help them stop the Keystone XL pipeline. But I don't believe that's going to be necessary. We'll let you know. So keep your bags packed. Keep your hiking shoes available, because we're going to have to hike back in to where they're trying to build that road. So so keep this on your list. I know that Mark Lee, you're ready to go. Run out there and jump in front of this pipeline. We got others who are willing to do that. Okay, so look, that's my 15 minutes on the front end. Now let's have Sara give you an update on the status of the Green New Deal for California that we're in the process of drafting and working with a number of organizations to finalize that draft. Okay, so here's Sara.
I just want to sort of begin by pointing out that our Lakota People's Law Project in the Dakotas and in now Montana as well, this fight is an alliance with Lakota people for their rights, which we've been working with them for 14 years on, but also for their lives, because the pipelines there are a threat to their very life and the future of their tribes, because it threatens the only sources of water that they have. So so for them, water is life, and this is a threat to all life. So, but it's also from the point of view of the Romero Institute, this is a fight to stop climate change, because these two pipelines are major expansions of the problems that create climate change, the carbon emissions, et cetera. And then these pipelines are going to go down to the Gulf of Mexico, and the oil is going to go to China. And the whole thing is ridiculous, considering the threat that we now face from climate change, which will be, that crisis will come right on the heels of COVID. It's already happening. It's just hard to see in some places, but in other places it's devastating already. And to be in alliance with the indigenous people right now is completely strategically correct, because they are on the front lines all over the world with the extractive industries. these industries want into their territory. They want their oil, they want their gold, they want whatever they can get out of there. And their voice, first of all, we all must join with them to protect them. But secondly, we need to hear their voice, because they know, they have a different relationship to Mother Earth and all the living things. It's a different way of being and seeing and understanding what is real. And we urgently need to hear from them, because we have gone astray. We have lost touch with our relationship with all living things. So now coming to California and talking about the Green New Deal here, I want to say that there are victories happening nationally that some of us did not expect, that we're very pleased about. For instance, Biden has come out with a 17-page proposal plan for getting to carbon neutral by 2050. And it's not in depth. It's more of a surfacey plan, but it's going in the right direction. Our researcher gave it an 85 out of 100 in terms of, and it's definitely a positive development. And the House Democrats came out with a 447-page plan to get to carbon neutral by 2050, and it is really quite in depth. We have not finished going through it in detail, but it's very encouraging, and it indicates, both of these things indicate that if Biden wins, we're going to see climate as a priority in the Congress as well as in the White House. So we should take heart, I think. But what we're doing in California when we're writing the California Green New Deal at the Romero Institute is something different. Actually, no one is doing what we're doing. Our theory is we have to have a 10-year plan. We have to have a plan that will get us to carbon neutral in 10 years instead of, between now and 2050 or 2040, because it's coming too fast, and it's been going for 40 or 50 years. We've got to deal with this. So we're also motivated, as you probably remember Danny saying, by Greta Thunberg's quote. She said, if all of you, meaning all of us, just keep deciding to do what you think is politically feasible instead of what's really necessary, there is no hope for my generation. So what we're doing in writing the California Green New Deal is putting together a 10-year plan that is it's not about political feasibility. It's about what is necessary to get us to carbon neutral in 10 years in a technically feasible way, as well as a constitutionally solid way, etc. So we don't expect people right now to rush to this solution, even when we get it written, hopefully by the end of the year, which is the goal. But what we do think is that as things proceed and as the crisis gets worse, people will be looking for a faster solution than any of the other ones that are in front of them. And we want to have this ready for them when that time comes. That's one scenario. It's also another scenario is we can do the mobilization and the educational campaigns throughout our state to actually get this passed. So either way, we feel it's extremely important to get it done. I suppose you all may have noticed that it was 100 degrees in Siberia the other day, where it can be as cold as 90 degrees below zero. And people there were putting up tinfoil on their windows to try to keep the sun from coming in and trying to push it back out again. That is a very sobering thing, because Siberia is very high up towards the North Pole. And the other thing is that is here's a very good sign. In California, there has been I think it's an executive order from Gavin. I'm not sure about this because I've heard about it, but I haven't read it. That we're going to have electric trucks now by 2035. That the trucking industry is going to have to go electric. That is very, very encouraging. So we have a part of our Green New Deal team that is trying to keep track of current legislation, some of it even having to do with COVID, because we realize that there are going to be opportunities and also challenges. Every month now, there will be opportunities to get things into bills that are being considered, or to there will be problem bills being considered. There are some right now that are serious problems. So we have a section of our team trying to keep track of that and working with a consultant who is very tuned in to what's going on in Sacramento. Then on the other side, in California, we have the ongoing problem of Gavin Newsom making deals with the fracking industry. He's made two sets of deals where they can frack, in a number of different places in both of those deals. It's sad, we were all hoping that that would end when Jerry Brown was no longer the governor. It hasn't ended. It doesn't mean we can't win in what we're trying to do, but it just goes to show us that he's still a problem too when it comes to the oil industry. And so we have to work really hard to come up with the alternative plans for how to get beyond that industry. So, okay, that's just some general points. Now, what exactly have we been doing? Because I know people are wondering that. And I can tell you, number one, COVID, where COVID has slowed us down a bit in the Institute is in the Green New Deal. It has not slowed us down on Lakota. It has not slowed us down on our regional green power work. But the distraction of trying to keep financially stable in the middle of COVID, which is a challenge for all nonprofits, has diverted our attentions. And where we have had the loss of time really is in the Green New Deal. I say we're two months behind schedule on the Green New Deal, but we have a deadline this month on an infusion of capital towards the Green New Deal. If that goes as planned, we are about to hire several people who are critical players in getting this thing written. If we're going to get it written by the end of the year, we have to put certain people in place. We have experts that are identified in several different fields, in public transportation, in agriculture, in electric power, in building building buildings that are all electric rather than using natural gas. There's different areas. We just got a contact for the oceans. We have these contacts. Some of them are very strategic in terms of the amount of emissions that we're putting up. We're putting up 40% of our emissions are in transportation. Therefore, we must have key experts in that whole arena, that involve not only the trucks but the cars. How do we go electric? How do we deal with the car industry? How do we provide the incentives that people can buy their electric cars because they're more expensive? How do we get these chargers set up all over the place? How do we begin to plan for how it affects our tourism when COVID calms down? How can we have it so when people come into our state, they go to the gas station and they don't get gas, they get biofuels, which can be used in gas cars, so that we can, keep our tourist industry, but also stop the emissions. So there's work going on these kinds of issues. And when I switch over to, and of course we have a wonderful expert that Tatanka introduced us to down in Santa Monica, who is an expert on public transportation, and he has a whole plan, extremely well developed, enormously well researched plan on how to get public transportation implemented in LA County and paid for. And he's willing to help us set up like a training conference call with the Bay Area as well as the Valley, the San Fernando Valley, because what he's saying is if we can get public transportation in LA County, in the Bay Area enhanced, and in the San Fernando Valley, it's going to be huge in terms of the amount of carbon that stops going up. So, and he's willing to share all of his expertise and research with other people. And I think, he would like it if the Romero Institute would set this up so that this training and these people would be all together, probably on Zoom now because of COVID. It was originally going to be a sort of a retreat type situation. So, so that is very, very good. His approach to getting this paid for is putting a tiny 3/4 of a cent tax that would be actually voted on by the public. And he has all the statistics showing that it's not going to hurt the public because the tax will not be applied to things that are necessary for our lives, like groceries and stuff like that. It's actually going to be more paid for by corporations and tourists. And it'll bring in literally millions and millions and millions of dollars for 30 years. So that every year there would be all this money to work with to build out the public transportation. So when we look at our pie chart and realize that 40% of our emissions are coming from transportation, if you could wave a magic wand and everybody had an electric car tomorrow and a place to charge it, you would drop that significantly. If you could get the trucks to do it, you'd drop it some more. And if you could get public transportation in place, you'd really drop it. So in order for us to figure out how to get to carbon zero in 10 years, we have to analyze each one of these sectors and figure out what you can do in 10 years that you can measurably predict what that would mean in terms of emissions coming down. Okay. In the ag culture, and I really don't know, I hope I'm not repeating things that Danny's already said, but anyway, we had 5 different Zooms in the last month with experts in the agricultural arena. I'm extremely interested in this arena because what we've discovered is that land, healthy land, that has living organisms in it, the organisms that live in land naturally, when it's healthy, it brings down tons of carbon, because we not only have to be thinking about how to stop putting it up, and that's the going carbon neutral. You get to the point, that's your first phase. Phase 1, you've got to be carbon neutral. So you're no longer adding to what's up there, because the more we add to it, the more we push ourselves towards a tipping point where we could lose the climate really that we know, and it becomes something else and spins out of control, and we no longer have any way to deal with it. So what we first phase, get carbon neutral, stop adding. But then the next phase is draw down what's up there, right? And it turns out that healing the land and restoring the land so that it is healthy is a way to pull down tons of carbon in the same way that we pull down trees. I'm not sure what's happening here.
Trying to get your video to work well.
My video doesn't work?
Keep going.
Is my video not working?
There you go. No, it's working.
What?
Yeah, no, it's working.
Okay. So 2 ways to draw down that are very powerful. One are trees. So tree planting, of course, is major importance, but the other is restoring the land. Now, guess what else happens when we restore the land, which is one of the reasons I'm really interested in it. And any person who's been spending years and years reading labels on food when they go to buy food, right? If we restore the land, we have to do that by stopping this whole syndrome of pesticides and herbicides as a way to farm. It just, to you restore the land, you have to change that dynamic, that whole pattern, that whole way of doing things. Just like we have to change the way that we drive cars, that we don't drive them anymore with fossil fuels, we drive them with electric. Well, we have to do the same thing with land. And the benefit that we will receive in other ways is that our food will be more healthy. Our kids will not be eating pesticides, will not be. So, and all the health problems that come with that, the health problems that are now facing the farm workers and the owners. Big ag, they have children that are sick. They have they have relatives that are sick. So there's a knowledge about this, but everybody just tries not to think about it because of all the money involved. But if you can redesign the economy, how the economy works, so that it's doable for people without killing themselves and everybody else, then it's actually possible to get the big ag to buy into this, which is a big challenge, of course. But I am optimistic, because you cannot not know what the pesticides and herbicides are doing to everybody. Okay, so that is agriculture is another very big piece. Public transportation. Now, electric power. We have a couple friends in we have one person who is probably the top expert in electric power in the state of California, and he is just standing by. When we can hire him, he will be able to divert himself from other work and really focus on this. But the reason why it gets a little complicated is the obvious answer would be, okay, let's have, say the government, say the California government, say everybody has to join a community choice energy agency near them. Well, all right, well, we have Monterey Bay Community Power, which we worked on doubling the size of its base. And okay, so that's already happening. Morro Bay is joining us. San Luis Obispo is joining us. Well, how about if we just expand on out into Santa Barbara? Is thinking about it, and create a situation where, because it takes a lot of hard work to start one, you just join one that's already done all that, and then you can expand and expand and expand. What if everybody, all areas in California, were told they have to join one of these CCs? Okay, how is that a problem? Well, it gets tricky. And here's why we have to, for instance, be working with the labor movement. That's going to be a very important piece between now and the end of the year in working out problems, because the electrical workers don't want to lose their electrical jobs, because they're good paying jobs. They can raise their kids, they can send their kids to school, etc. And so they would rather, they don't want to jump from that into solar jobs or into perhaps no jobs if they're not decent wages, etc. So there's a kind of there's an economic analysis, there's labor discussions, all kinds of these things. Now, Denny down in Santa Monica, who's working on his public transportation gigantic plan, has worked with 4 constituencies very purposely. He's worked with the interfaith constituency, the business constituency, the labor constituency, and the environmental constituency. And he says, I can pass this tax and this entire thing if I have those 4 constituencies with me. So he's just getting to the point where he's bringing them together. He's spent months and months working with each one individually, finding out what they need and want, what they think. And now he's starting to bring them together to see what it would be like if labor really understood the environmentalists and vice versa, et cetera, et cetera. So this is, there's no magic wand here. This is a lot of work. Danny has done a 350-page draft plan for the legislation, which is great, but now we're in that nitty-gritty period where you really need to be talking and meeting and listening to a lot of different people, so that if you imagine we get this finished, when we launch this thing and it becomes public what we're doing, and we want to be launching it with allies all over the place from all those constituencies, with people endorsing and saying, yeah, this works for business. Yeah, this works for labor. Yeah, this works for environmental justice. This works for the farm workers. They're not going to get poisoned every day. You want the whole, all the parts of the community that are going to benefit to be clear and standing there with you. So it's as Danny reminded me, there's a fellow we met who's a high up fiscal person in Google, and he was using the term communitarian consciousness. Now it's time for us to have communitarian consciousness. And I thought, well, that's an interesting word, meaning our companies are not going to do too well if the community is collapsing. And I noticed that somebody said it also on CNBC, and then I realized there's an element in the big business community that is talking about communitarian consciousness. Okay, we got to find out who they are. We need to work with them. We need to have input from them, and to see if they will endorse and participate. So this is what's happening, and you know, it's going to be a while. It's going to take, I know it's going to take us, it's fast to do it actually by the end of the year. I still feel optimistic it can be done. It all depends on steady funding, so that, because as an executive director, I'm hesitant to hire a bunch of people and then have to let them go in a couple months. You know, so I'm trying to set up a situation here with Danny and other people helping me, that we can project what's coming for a while, so that when we hire people and give them an assignment, we know that we can pay them until they get that done. And that these are experts or organizers targeting certain constituencies, or organizers targeting certain areas of the state. There's the whole lobbying aspect of this out of Sacramento. We have to track it. So there are a lot of parts and pieces, but what I want to say to you basically is, please have heart. Please know that this is possible. It's possible to do this. And it's particularly possible to do it in California. And no matter what happens with the man with the orange hair, the daily nightmare that we're all living through, no matter what happens with that, with whoever gets elected, whatever, we can do this in California, so that it can provide hope and ideas, and maybe a roadmap to other people, because we're out of time. That's all. We're just out of time, and people make problems and people solve them. So collectively, and everybody that's on this network right now is part of, you know, this seed that's going to grow into a big tree. So I hope you will stay with us as we go on this journey. It's a sacred journey.
Thank you, Sara. Let's give it back to Danny here.
Okay. Now, what we want to do, while we're in our shop, we're working on going through this process with the California Green New Deal and getting it fully fleshed out in the statute, fully prepared. And while we're working to get the pipelines shut off, and there's this other task that is going on right now, and that is the preparation for the change of an administration. That, you know, we don't have to go into, you know, hours together here talking about what it's been like over the last 3.5 years. That it wasn't as though people didn't tell everybody that's what was going to happen, but it's happened, and it's obviously been compounded by this coronavirus. But the bottom line is, what we have to do between now and November 3rd, we have to try to think about what we together, the 130 people that are here together tonight, what is it that we need to do between now and November 3rd to maximize the probabilities that there's going to be a genuinely progressive administration that's going to come into power, that is going to be able to address the global climate crisis, is going to be able to deal with the racial justice issues, are going to be able to deal with the criminal justice issues in general, the whole panoply of issues, constitutional protections, etc. Now, this is all being prismed in our office through the issue of the Green New Deal, because that is the major public policy thrust that we're engaged in right now. Now, what I want to do is the things that I want to be addressing, and we've only got I guess another 15 minutes or so here. What I want to do is I want to introduce to you if you will, the course that we're going to be working together on. In light of the fact that the COVID-19 virus occurred, I'm not teaching the course at the University of California at Santa Cruz that I normally teach, the trajectory of justice course. And so what we've done is that as long as our coalition of people here remains strong, and that we have at least 100 of us, we have 130 people here now, but as long as there's more than 100 of us that are working on this thing together, I want us to understand what it is that I'm proposing. We take the steps to do. And I want to address like half a dozen major issues here. Number one, I want to talk tonight, just by way of introduction, of what's getting ready to happen on November 3rd, so that we can realize which of the two universes we're going to be in. I think that it's 70% likely at this point in time that Joe Biden, who is to a 99% certainty going to be the Democratic Party nominee, no matter what happens at the convention, whatever the configuration of that is, that Joe Biden is going to get elected. He is going to be selecting a Black woman as his vice president. And he is going to be assembling an administration that in the executive branch. And I believe that right now, there's probably a 51% probability that we're going to be able to change 4 seats in the United States Senate, so that the administration is going to have a House of Representatives that is going to be sympathetic to these progressive policies, and it's going to have a Senate that is at least willing to pass the legislation that the House of Representatives and the executive branch support. So that I believe that there's basically a 70 to 75% likelihood that we're going to have an administration coming into office in January of 2017 that is going to be moderately liberal. It's not. I don't think it's going to be the neoliberals. I think it's going to be a genuinely liberal administration. It's not going to be inclined to be progressive. But they will be inclined to be liberal. They will see that the period that we've gone through over the last 4 years has demonstrated what the problems are that can be exacerbated by a genuinely reactionary element in the country. I believe that the political party of the present president is going to be significantly weakened because of their continuing support for the things that he says and has done. And so I think there's going to be a tendency on the part of this incoming administration to be more liberal than even the administration that Hillary Clinton would have headed up, who won some 3 million more votes than Donald Trump, but because of the Electoral College did not take office. I think that the new administration is going to be coming in with President Biden, and probably Vice President Kamala Harris, but possibly former Ambassador or National Security Advisor Rice. But that administration is going to be more liberal than the Democratic National Committee was thinking it was going to be when they pre-selected Joe Biden to be the nominee for this time around. So I think that what we need to do is we need to be preparing, not for the fact that, Donald Trump is going to, establish martial law. He's going to cancel the election, that he's going to do everything he can do to try to suppress the vote, the Republican Party. They're going to do everything they can do to try to deny the validity of mail-in ballots. But the bottom line, I think that the probabilities are so high that there's going to be just a substantial victory on the part of Joe Biden and the Democratic Party ticket, and the Senate as well, that we need to be responsibly preparing for what we do with regard to the relationship we have all with that new administration and with the new Congress. We have to be prepared to give them some specific things that we all want them to do. That's one of the major roles of the California Green New Deal. It's going to be beta testing this particular New Deal, this Green New Deal, and it's going to be demonstrating that this is really practicable. That we can garner enough support from the business community, from labor unions, as Sara said. We can actually demonstrate that this is workable, that we can rein in the fossil fuel industry here in California. We can deal with the transportation system here in California, and that this will be a model that we're going to be constantly pushing into the people in the administration in Washington, D.C., saying, look, we're making this work. This is what it looks like. This is what the taxing structure looks like. This is what the environmental laws would look like. And so that we're going to be pressing those people in the Biden administration to be more progressive than they had intended to be. I think that the global climate change bill, the proposal that's been put out by Joe Biden here just in the past week, was considerably more liberal than people might have guessed it was going to be. So I think that we're being heard. They're perfectly aware of the fact that the citizenry around the country is rising up and demanding that our government structures stop feeding the interests of the major corporations and start addressing the fundamental policy problems that are damaging all of the people, not only of our country, but of the world. So I believe that as a second thing, in addition to the fact that I believe that Joe Biden is going to win, I believe that there's a probability that we're going to get control of the Senate. I believe that we have a genuine opportunity to push that administration to be more progressive than they were intending to be, okay? Now, I think my own personal opinion is that what we ought to do is try to get Joe Biden to not only name his vice president before going through the whole thing at this convention and waiting until he's nominated, and then this big drama of him rolling out his vice. I think in addition to him naming his vice president now, I think he should name his other cabinet members now. I think that what we need to do is put pressure on the Biden campaign and the Democratic National Committee to come forward with the alternative government that they're actually planning to put into place, so that we know who the Secretary of State is going to be, that we know who the Attorney General is going to be. I think if he doesn't pick Kamala Harris to be his vice president, we know who the Attorney General is going to be. It'll probably be Kamala Harris. We need to know who the Secretary of Agriculture is going to be, who the Secretary of Labor is going to be, who the Secretary of Energy is going to be, who's going to head up the Environmental Protection Agency. That there's no reason for us as the people of the country to allow the Democratic Party to play, hide the whatever it is they're trying to hide. Why hide the administration that they're going to be trying to put into place? That I don't think that we can afford to have them sit around and have us depend solely on the goodwill of the country toward Joe Biden, or just the animus that they harbor toward Donald Trump and his people. I think what we want to do is get our leadership up front and center, get them to start going around the country, articulating what the policies are that each of those cabinet positions are going to be proposing, that we're going to get the people who are running for the Senate to talk about what their position is in supporting these positions. I think that what we need to do, the people of our country need to move to take over our government and to take over the policies of our government in a peaceful, progressive, intelligent, and sophisticated manner. And so that we need to use every single tool we have at our disposal. And one of them is that we know people. We know people that are going to be in the administration. We know people that are in the political parties. We know people on the state level. We know people on the national level. What we have to do is every one of us has to exercise our personal goodwill toward everybody that we know in the government. And we have to collectively, the 130 of us or so, we need to reach out to all of the people that we know who know other people that are going to be in the administration, and get as much intelligence as we possibly can as to who the new people are going to be in these cabinet positions and get them to lean on Joe Biden and the Democratic National Committee to announce this, this new government in waiting. We need to give our people hope in our country. We need to have the people see who our government is going to be so that we can support the people and talk with them when they're out across the country, meet with them and talk with them about what the issues are that affect the cabinet position they're going to hold so that they can understand what the people in the grassroots really believe and what we need to have done. So that's the point I want to make here. And so that what I want us to do in the gatherings that we have each Friday or every other Friday, whatever it is that we end up here deciding that people are willing to support, to move through the steps of saying, what should each of these departments in the executive branch be proposing? And what should the leadership in the House of Representatives that we know is going to remain in the Democratic Party hands? We know who the chairpersons are of the various committees that correlate to these executive branch offices in the national executive. We know who the senators are going to be that are in waiting. We know the senators that are the ranking members of the committees in the United States Senate, who, assuming that we can win the 4 seats, are going to now be the chairpersons of those committees. We need to get busy. We cannot sit around waiting, treating American politics as though they're a spectator sport. And we sit around waiting for the professional team to run onto the field to our surprise as to who's playing what positions. You know, so that's what I'm going to be proposing. And what I want us to be able to do is to figure out not only what we need to be doing between now and November 3rd to try to maximize the probabilities that the people who are going to be governing are going to be the appropriate people in each of those cabinet positions and are going to be able to understand what the problems are, what the progressive options are that they have, so that we can make that administration, the minute it comes into office, more progressive than they were intending to be. You know, but we also have to start planning, and this one is a little bit more radical, but it's extremely important that we start thinking about this. We have to start thinking about what that election is going to look like in 2024. Because if, in fact, Joe Biden doesn't run again, we have to make a decision as to whether or not we should just acquiesce to the Democratic National Committee just deciding that whoever he picks for vice president this time is going to be the automatic candidate. You know, that we need to understand what kind of administration do we want to have in power in 2024. And so that the people that are in office from 2020 to 2024 are going to be having to campaign with us, the American people. They're going to have to campaign to either hold that position or they're going to have to step aside to have someone who is more progressive and more in tune with the rest of the people in the country. So that I think that is what we need to be considering doing together over the next period of between now and November 3rd, and then from between November 3rd of 2020 and November 3rd of 2024. So we have basically a 4.5 year mission out, well, 4 years and 4 months out in front of us right now, in which we have to mobilize. And in addition to figuring out the California Green New Deal, we have to figure out also what it is we want a genuinely progressive administration to look like, and a progressive Congress, and what legislation we think they need to have. We need to learn how to self-govern. And so that the course, if you will, that I'm proposing that we engage in here together is, how do we participate in taking over the government of our country? How do we mobilize the people around the nation to take over our government and get the government to do what is necessary for the people, rather than having to continue to do what is beneficial for the major corporations? Because the reality is the Democratic National Committee is still disposed toward believing that what's good for General Motors is good for the country, you know, and what is good for the major corporations it trickles down to all of us. Well, that ain't working. That ain't working. And so we've got to get busy, and we've got to do our job as citizens of the United States to peacefully and progressively take over control of our government. And we aren't going to get time to do it fully between now and November 3rd, but we have the entire 4-year period to pressure the Biden administration to become more progressive. And we have to start preparing for a major campaign in 2024 for a genuinely progressive administration if the Biden administration does not measure up to what has to be done. Okay, so that's my proposal for the course, if you will. It's going to have a lot of details of what need to be done over and above, but including the California Green New Deal. And so that I want us all to be thinking about this. I will facilitate this by, I mean, I happen to have been fortunate enough to study a lot of these things for a lot of years, and spent 20 years in Washington, D.C., so I'm familiar with the ins and outs of those committees and the executive branch offices, et cetera. But I want all of us to participate in this. I want us to be making proposals. I want us to think in terms of, I want you to go on the internet between now and next Friday. I want you to go on the internet so you're familiar with what all of the executive branch offices are, what the agencies are, what their areas of jurisdiction are, and what you think the policies should be in those areas. And what we can start doing is we can start dividing our 130 people into small groups, working groups, to focus on each one of those departments. So we can be trying to formulate a concrete policy similar to the Green New Deal, that do the same process, that we come up with a set of policies that we think ought to be done, but then we figure out who we have to talk to get information from them to help us do with each of those departments what the same kind of thing we're doing with the Green New Deal at the Romero Institute, is perfecting that particular legislation so that we see that it can do whatever it is that is technologically possible and what is constitutionally defensible. That's the standard that we want. That's the standard that we're using for the Green New Deal. We're not trying to figure out right away what is immediately politically feasible. We're trying to figure out what's technologically necessary to get done, or technologically possible to get done, and does what it is that needs to be done. Okay, because we have the lives of tens of millions of people in our hands. This right now, in this next 8-year period, we have the lives of tens of millions of people in our hands for the future of our planet. We have got to get done what has to get done with regard to stopping global climate change and rolling it back. In the same way, we need to set the tone. I mean, most of us here are 60 years old or older, and we know that we've got a comparatively limited amount of time to be able to do what needs to be done in our lifetimes, to have done everything that we possibly can do to make this world as good as we possibly can for our posterity. I mean, that sounds a little high flown, but it's true. Okay, and so that's what I want us to do. And what I want us to do is, I want you to be communicating with Tatanka and Carol over the period of the next week to share your views as to whether you think that's worth your time. Is it worth you taking your Friday evenings to participate in this, knowing that there's going to be homework, right? That and I can call on you. See, I can see all of you. I've got all your little pictures here, just like in the what do they call it, a virtual class. So see, I can call on Sharon. I can see you right there. And I can see I can see Stephen Bear. I can see John. I can see everybody. So what I can do is I can ask you what your thoughts are. I can ask you, okay, what particular department of the executive branch do you want to concentrate on? so that we can start assembling little teams. Who's going to work on the Justice Department, for example? How many people are going to work on that Justice Department? How many people are going to work on the Department of Transportation? How many people are going to work on the Environmental Protection Agency? You know, we're probably going to have a flood of people that are willing to pick on the EPA. But the bottom line is, I want us to start working together. I don't want to have to do all the work here, and I don't want to have to be, you know, the only one doing the work here. I want us to see that we're all adequately committed to trying to do everything that we can possibly do to make this incoming administration as progressive as possible, and that we're going to do everything that we can do possibly to make sure that the administration that's coming in 2024, when Joe Biden retires, you know, that it isn't just handed over automatically to some predetermined, you know, candidate that the DNC picks. So we've got to do our work. This is our citizenship course. Okay. So anyway, that's my that puts us.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you.
Yes,
I just want to say again, thank you to everyone who has contributed to this really heartening dialogue that's been going on, and all your suggestions. It's really great. It gives me a lot of hope. I hope it gives you hope too.
Okay.
Okay. All right, you guys. So I want to say good night to Christy and to Colleen. I see you guys there too. It looks like a whole gathering of friends here. So let's get busy and have a citizen takeover of the government.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody.
So I guess I got muted. Okay, but the bottom line is, thank you very much for all coming out tonight or staying in tonight. You know, I'll see you next Friday. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey.
Sarah. Thank you. Blessings.
Tina.